Yeah. So my talk today is balancing learner agency and teacher guidance in AI integrated writing pedagogy, or I should really have named it everything I've done on generative AI. I'm going to start with work that I've been doing with Sunao Fukunaga at Kyushu Institute of Technology. And afterwards, I will move on to work that I've been doing with Amy Oda at the University of Washington and Yunhai Hess at Indiana University. I plan to talk this way because I feel that the studies presented will offer a coherent story about pedagogical implications. Oops, forgot to share my screen. Um, All right, hope is not too bright. I try to go with the theme and I chose a blue. That is probably way too bright. So I'll first start with my work with Sunao Fukunaga at Kyushu Institute of Technology. So our work focuses on the ethical integration of ChatGPT in process writing instruction. So the reason why we started this work is because process writing has never really taken place in Japanese education. Japanese students have received oh, little to no comprehensive writing instruction in both Japanese and English throughout their pre-university education. And a lot of studies have shown that Japanese students don't know how to write, even in Japanese. And a lot of participants in a large studies show that they had never written a multi-paragraph free composition before college. They usually only wrote at the paragraph level in English classes. So because Japanese students generally have never been taught process writing, we thought that it would be a good idea to incorporate ChatGPT, ask them to get feedback from ChatGPT at different stages of their writing process. And from that experience, maybe we can also teach them process writing. Another reason why we want to do this study is because we want to level the playing field. A lot of Japanese scholars, when they go through their college education, all their classes are conducted in Japanese. And then once they get into graduate school, suddenly they have to present in English, publish in English, do their assignments in English, and it's a huge jump for them. So because of that, their lack of vocabulary and grammar knowledge actually prolongs their writing process, and they lose a lot of research time in the process. So, and also, of course, English-speaking academics frequently disregard scientific studies written in other languages, and we know that. So I'll present the first study with Sunao Fukunaga. And in this study, we offered a ChatGPT writing workshop with two main modules. In the first module, we talked about digital literacy or critical AI literacy, ethics, and academic integrity. And then in the second module, which is what I'll focus on, we also took guidance from our previous work on machine translation in second language writing. And because in previous studies, we used workshops on strategies to manipulate machine translation tools to improve students' writing quality. So we kind of borrowed a lot of the same strategies in our study. So these are three of our research questions. The first one is, what were participants' perceptions of the ethical and effective use of ChatGPT in academic English writing? The second research question is, how did participants feel about the different types of ChatGPT feedback that they received in their writing process? The third research question, what skills and knowledge did participants feel were necessary in order to maximize the potential of ChatGPT in academic English writing? So in this first study, we had 37 Masters of Science graduate students in STEM from 2 academic English classes taught by Sunao. And these students are on the A2 level. According to the Cepher scale. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Cepher scale, but basically A2 means basic users. It means that they can understand sentences and frequently used expressions related to areas of the most immediate relevance. They can give very basic personal and family information, talk about shopping, local geography, employment, and basically very simple tasks. So these students mostly take all their content courses in Japanese. And suddenly, once they get into this master's program, they're required to write in English, write lab reports in English, read research literature, write conference abstracts. And at this university, a lot of the professors actually teach students to use machine translation or ChatGPT to do the work for them. They show students how to do it in class, but not in the ethical way. Some instructors actually even tell students to put the entire English text into machine translation so that it will translate the text for them. That's how they read. So this is module 1 of the workshop. In this workshop, we mainly focus on critical AI literacy or digital literacy, ethics, and academic integrity. I won't talk too much about it. Basically, we showed them a video on generative AI by the Nomura Research Institute. We talked about some guidelines issued by the University of Tokyo and Tohoku University. And then we had students do a group discussion. And afterwards, the teacher, Sunao herself, gave a demonstration on how to use ChatGPT as a writing aid. So this part is the part that I will focus on. In module 2, we focus on getting students to use ChatGPT to get feedback on their writing at different stages of the writing process. So in week 9, they have to submit a speech draft. So this is actually their final part of their final project. So they have to do a presentation, a 4-minute presentation, 300 words, and they spent 4 weeks to present this speech draft. So because these students' English proficiency is so low, we actually had them write in Japanese first. So they wrote the entire thing in Japanese first. And then in the following week, we asked them to translate this draft in class so that we know that it's actually their work. So after they translated this Japanese draft into their English draft in week 10, what we asked them to do is to go on ChatGPT and get feedback on content and organization. We gave them the prompts. We encouraged them to write their own prompts, but no one did. So everyone just used the prompts that we fed them. After they got the feedback from ChatGPT, they revised their draft and turned in their second speech draft. And then the teacher gave her feedback and returned the draft. And finally, students get to use ChatGPT once more. And this time we want them to ask questions about audience awareness and grammar. So we start from the global issues first and then the more local issues. So the instructor demonstrated using prompts to solicit feedback before. So For example, in week 10, they have to get feedback on content and organization. So in week 10, the instructor did a demonstration. And in week 12, the instructor also did another demonstration on how to get feedback on audience awareness and grammar. So we gave them some prompts. For example, this is the prompt for content and organization. So this is the prompt we gave the students. We encouraged them to write their own, but no one did. Everyone just used this one. So this is the prompt. I have written a speech about my research and would like to get feedback on the content. When giving feedback, these are the do's. Give feedback in English, point out the strengths of the speech, point out the weaknesses of the speech, comment on the organization and clarity of the speech, and pull out parts that are not clear and list them. And the don'ts: do not give feedback on grammar or word choice. Do not offer a rewrite, because if you don't say that, ChatGPT will offer a rewrite. And we also gave them the option to translate from English to Japanese if they don't understand the response from ChatGPT. And here's the prompt on audience awareness. You are a non-expert reading a description of my research. What kind of advice would you give me so a layperson can easily understand it? Again, don't offer a rewrite, make a list of suggestions with explanations. Again, there's the option to translate into Japanese. And then the grammar feedback prompt: I have a script for a speech. I would like you to make a list of 10 grammatical errors. We limited to 10 because usually these students' writing is so filled with errors, so we don't want to overwhelm them. So we just asked ChatGPT to list 10. So after the study, I will show you a sample in a moment. But after the study, we did some final reflection surveys. And one of the questions we asked was, how confident are you in your ability to use ChatGPT ethically? Because we did do a whole module on ethics and critical AI literacy. And the mean was 7.15, which is pretty good. And a lot of students felt that they were able to use this tool ethically. What does it mean to be ethical? Of course, that's something to be discussed, and I'm happy to answer those questions. How confident are you in your ability to write effective prompts? Notice that, again, we never taught them how to write prompts in this study. We fed them all the prompts, but we also wanted to ask this question: do you think you can write your own prompts? This time the mean is 6.26, not too awful. Some students feel that they can do it, others don't. We asked them to rate the different types of feedback they received from ChatGPT. So first of all, we asked them to rate what they thought about the content and organization feedback. The mean was 6.67, not too bad, but compared to the the grammar feedback, you can see a fairly striking difference. The mean for grammar is 7.3. I should also mention, I think I will mention that in a moment anyway, but I will just say it right now. When going through the students' work, and also because we also collected all the ChatGPT interactions, when we were reviewing all the ChatGPT interactions, what we found was that the explanations ChatGPT gave were often fairly bad. Is not the correct explanation. Sometimes they corrected things that they didn't need to correct. But because the students' proficiency was so low, they believed everything ChatGPT gave them. So that should explain why the grammar feedback was rated so high. We also asked them for their feedback on the audience awareness. And the mean is 7. 7.19, which is pretty good. So going back to our research questions, what were participants' perceptions of the ethical and effective use of ChatGPT in academic English writing? Generally, the response was positive, and but there were participants who felt that we need to be careful. We need to use it with caution because you can easily abuse this tool. Many participants responded that it should only be used as a reference because it's easy to rely on the tool too much. And this was a recurring theme. Participants expressed that there needs to be very clear guidelines in the classroom. And how did participants feel about the different types of ChatGPT feedback that they received in the writing process? I already talked about it. The grammar feedback was rated the highest, but when we reviewed um, the ChatGPT interactions, we actually found that the grammatical feedback contained the most mistakes and the most inaccurate explanations. And on several occasions, it even suggested incorrect corrections to perfectly grammatical sentences. Um, yeah. And of course, studies have shown that students will be misled because of the authoritative tone used by ChatGPT. So these are just some student comments on the content organization feedback. One student said because they pointed out unnecessary sentences and missing content to clarify the origin and conclusion of the text, but there were some misinterpretations occurring with regard to technical contents. It was useless and vague. I used the instructor's feedback because they were on target about the development of the story. We supplemented the missing parts accordingly. So mixed feedback. Student comments on the grammar feedback. I felt that the feedback from the teacher alone was sufficient. I felt that these are translations of what the students wrote, and I couldn't fix all the grammatical issues here because I felt that it pointed out all my grammatical errors accurately. I was not able to determine whether ChatGPT made an error or not because, as I said, students' proficiency was fairly low. The last one, the feedback provided by ChatGPT was very useful when my English level is low. Also, unlike sending it to others, I can send it to ChatGPT at my own convenience and get a response immediately. The student comments on audience awareness feedback was generally positive. So they learned that the technical terms that they were using were generally unrecognized by the public, and so they added explanations about those words. Technical terms were eliminated as much as possible. Brief supplementary explanations were included when absolutely necessary. And then we also asked the question, what skills and knowledge did participants feel were necessary in order to maximize the potential of ChatGPT in academic English writing? And a lot of them felt that the most important skill to have was prompt engineering, meaning the creation of writing prompts. Some participants wrote that it's important to verify the information provided by ChatGPT, and some participants felt that they needed better English in order to evaluate feedback from ChatGPT. So the quantitative data in this study alone shows that most participants found at least one type of ChatGPT feedback to be useful. But we also want to emphasize that ChatGPT is not the same as a human peer because the input is not always comprehensible. Explanations and corrections are typically out of the learner's current level of understanding. And ChatGPT does not actually increase the authenticity of the writing activity like human peers do, because when you engage with a human peer, sometimes you share some local knowledge, no, maybe local knowledge inside the classroom, maybe something like, oh, this will make the teacher laugh. So and so will love it. ChatGPT doesn't share that. So in order for a writing experience to be authentic, you want those things. So this is a sample of a student work. So what you're seeing here is their revision after getting the content feedback from ChatGPT. So this is their speech draft, as you can see, is fairly short, and ChatGPT told them that there are several technical terms that were unexplained, for example, LIDAR. So the student added a whole paragraph explaining what it is and what it does. So this is just, the red part is the additions by the students. Now, this is the same essay done by the same student, but this time the revisions are done after he got the grammar feedback. So you can see that there were a lot of changes, a lot of local changes, and I should also point out that the student actually adopted a lot of the feedback or corrections, I really should say, offered by ChatGPT without thinking about it. So we thought about the limitations of the study. First of all, the sample size was just 37, and these are graduate students. These are graduate students who were very concerned about academic integrity. So of course, they're going to use this tool correctly, or they will at least try to. Um, and one major limitation at the time, we thought, was that we didn't even give them a chance to get some practice in writing prompts. We want to give them some more time and maybe some more practice to write their own prompts so that they can use these transferable skills in their future writing activities. So we did a follow-up study. Do you guys know about Perplexity AI? So I hope I won't get into trouble for saying this. You cannot use ChatGPT, but you can use Perplexity AI in Hong Kong for some reason. So we did a follow-up study with Perplexity AI, and this time we included a prompt engineering workshop. For this study, we have 45 Masters of Science graduate students, also in 2 academic English classes. And this time, the study is slightly different. So in week 9, we have 2 workshops. We have a writing process workshop and a prompt engineering workshop. Why do we need to have 2? Because as I said, a lot of students don't even know that writing is a process. They don't know that there are so many different stages involved in the writing process. So we want to make them aware that there's different stages in the writing process. So we talked about the pre-writing stage, the writing stage, the revising stage, the editing stage, the publishing stage. So all these different stages and what you do at these stages. After that, we gave them a prompt engineering workshop, and we emphasized the fact that you need to know what stage you are in during the writing process, so that when you go to AI and when you ask questions, you will ask questions that are appropriate for your stage. So for example, at the revising stage, the focus should be on global issues like content organization, genre convention, audience awareness. But at the editing stage, the focus should be on more local issues like grammar and word choice. So as I said, in week 9, there's 2 workshops on writing process and prompt engineering. So they got some time practicing how to write different prompts for different stages of the writing process. And then in week 10, they wrote a speech draft again in Japanese. And we also allowed them to get ChatGPT feedback in Japanese this time. So they wrote their own prompts in Japanese also and got feedback from ChatGPT in Japanese. This part went very well. Students knew exactly what they needed to do when they wrote in Japanese. They knew that when they're still in the brainstorming process, they asked the right questions, like, I have this A, B, C, D, E, these ideas. What other things could I possibly write, right? So the questions were all correct. They asked the right questions. But when we got to the English draft, this is where the troubles come, because the students start to not stay on task anymore. Suddenly they don't know what to do anymore. And I will show you. So this is just some activities that we did in the prompt engineering workshop. We gave them a sample essay and we gave them 2 prompts and asked them to evaluate the prompts. So before I show you what they actually did, I wanted to show you some partial results. I'm not going to go over the entire study because I have more interesting stuff to show you. So this is just the results for students' confidence in their ability to create effective prompts. So this time we gave them a whole workshop and they went through it. And 49% of them rated their ability as 4 out of 5, which is pretty good, right? But when we actually studied the perplexity, have I been using ChatGPT? Is perplexity. We're using perplexity for this part of the study. When we actually studied the perplexity interactions, what we noticed was that students were not doing what we asked them to do. So when we had them go to ChatGPT for feedback on their Japanese draft, they did everything correctly. Once they got to the English portion, once they had to write everything into English, they started to ask questions like, I will present this content in English using PowerPoint slides. The presentation will take about 4 minutes. I would like to use simpler English expressions. And then they fed ChatGPT their Japanese draft and had ChatGPT do the whole thing in English. So they didn't even write it themselves. Or they would do something like this. Are the objectives, methods, and importance of each item written clearly and in a manner that a university student in science field can understand? Are any of the words used appropriately? Is this ethical as a research proposal? Is the English grammar correct? Please give us your feedback. So a lot of different types of questions all jumbled together. And we also didn't teach them to do that. We taught them to do one question at a time and also ask follow-up questions, interact with ChatGPT. So these students are not doing what we asked them at all. So what we found from the perplexity study and the ChatGPT study is that most students looked for one and done feedback and did not ask follow-up questions when the task was too difficult for them. So for example, in the Perplexity AI study, students mainly relied on Perplexity AI for grammatical feedback. So even though we asked them to focus on these different types of feedback, they mainly used it to check their grammar. I used Perplexity for grammatical issues and my classmates for readability. My classmates are not specialists in the field, so their opinions may be less accurate than those of AI. Regarding the draft, I incorporated as much feedback as possible related to grammar and eloquence. AI helped identify areas for improvement in grammar, word choice, and expression. What we after we concluded the two studies, what we found was that the second study, the Perplexity AI study, actually requires stronger metacognitive skills because students must plan, monitor, and evaluate their own prompts. And then they have to use AI very thoughtfully. So if their metacognitive skills are undeveloped, if they don't have the self-regulation ability, it will lead them to unethical usage. So we started this whole follow-up study thinking that, oh, if I offer a prompt engineering workshop, if I give them the agency, they will be able to do this. This will be a much better experience. But it didn't turn out that way because the students actually lacked the metacognitive skills. They lacked the English proficiency. So they actually needed more structure. So the first study actually worked way better. So now I'll move on to my work with Amy Oda and Yunhai Hess. And this time we want to use ChatGPT to do what is called dynamic assessments. Are you guys familiar with this term, dynamic assessments? So dynamic assessments is a concept and a form of assessments in sociocultural theory. Is different from traditional assessments. We don't test crystallized knowledge at one point in time. We focus on the process of learning. So in dynamic assessments, you might be offered a lot of hints from the instructor. The instructor will guide you through the process. And the focus in dynamic assessments is the learning potential, is how what you can do with help. So in order to understand this work, I need to go over just a few terms which are important in sociocultural theory. Amy Oda subscribes to the sociocultural theory of second language acquisition. So when I work with her, I also have to use this approach. I love this approach. It's not that I don't. Yeah, but this is the theoretical underpinnings of this research. So first of all, I want to talk about the zone of proximal development. The ZPD is probably a famous term. A lot of you know about it. It means the range of tasks a learner can perform with guidance and collaboration of a more knowledgeable person, but cannot yet do independently. So it's the distance between what you can do individually and what you can do with some help from a peer, usually a more experienced peer. ZPD is not a space, it's an activity and it's collaborative. So it requires social interaction to bridge the gap between your current ability and your potential development. So it requires joint effort. And so the teacher and the student have to work together in order to achieve some kind of learning. But traditionally, the ZPD has been thought of as something that is social. It has to be between people. So Amy Oda in 2006 argued that ZPD shouldn't be just a between people space because cognitively mature adults can actually create and manage their own ZPDs in order to flexibly seek assistance from others, like a peer or a teacher, or even textual sources. So you can go to a dictionary and form a ZPD with the dictionary itself. So dynamic assessment is an interactive process that evaluates a learner's potential by actively engaging with and supporting their learning. So dynamic assessments and ZPD, they are related concepts. They are because in order to have a successful dynamic assessment, it has to tap into a learner's zone of proximal development. So it's designed to provide graduated assistance. For example, you can provide hints that move from general to more specific and adapting the support to the learner's current needs. It highlights the learner's potential development, not just their current independent performance. And it involves collaboration between the assessor and learner, providing scaffolding and feedback. So this mediation reflects the social interaction integral to the zone of proximal development, where learning is co-constructed. So in this study, we have 3 AI-mediated corrective feedback sessions. So I will focus on the third one in the interest of time, but I will briefly talk about what Amy did, what we did actually together. So in the traditional information dump approach, what we did was that, let me see, I think it's this one. So what we did was we fed Amy's Korean essay, because she's learning Korean at this time, into ChatGPT. And we just asked ChatGPT for minimal necessary corrections, whatever that means. And then ChatGPT gave her a lot of feedback. So pages and pages. So Amy calls this a one-off information dump. And Amy is really frustrated by this. So this was the first session. So we didn't like that. And then, wait, not yet. And then in the second corrective feedback session, we asked ChatGPT to give line-by-line feedback. So instead of having it give us an information dump, we said, give your feedback line by line. Do not give me feedback on the entire thing. Do it line by line. This time it worked better, but a lot of times ChatGPT corrected Amy's writing immediately without allowing her to think about what's wrong. So that's the second session. The third session is where we try to apply dynamic assessments. We teach ChatGPT to do DA, to do dynamic assessments, and give line-by-line feedback. So Amy actually started by asking, so the bolded parts are all Amy, and this is ChatGPT. So Amy asked, first of all, do you know what dynamic assessments is? And then ChatGPT gave a definition. And Amy asked, can you do DA with me if I give you a composition to work on together? And then ChatGPT, of course, says, absolutely, I would love to do it. And how would you approach doing this if I gave you 2 paragraphs all at once? So Amy is trying to see if ChatGPT will actually do dynamic assessments. And then ChatGPT gave her an answer, basically describing what it will do. And then Amy said, well, this is not DA. This is very one-sided. There's no interaction. How would collaboration work? It sounds like you're just going to identify problems. And then ChatGPT said, yes, you're absolutely right about that. DA should be more collaborative. And then Amy asked ChatGPT to approach this sentence by sentence and allow more collaborative interactions. So this is how it started. So that's the training part. And then I will show you some examples. So don't try to ask me to read Korean. I don't speak Korean. This is, so ChatGPT basically read Amy's essay, and they're doing line by line feedback. So this is one of the lines that they picked out. So let's focus on the phrase blah blah blah, and It was asking all the right questions. What do you think about these suggestions? Can you find a better way to express the idea that the author is creating a comic based on their experience, perhaps using one of those words or another option? But what ChatGPT did this time is it didn't allow Amy to think. It corrected her error immediately. And then Amy was like, there you go again, fixing my mistake. You need to ask me, right? So what Amy is doing here is a kind of ZPD management, right? So she is um, using her self-regulation to teach ChatGPT how to help her. So this is an example of ZPD management. And ChatGPT responded, "Oh, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Again, I jumped in too quickly. So let's go back to the process of asking you questions to guide you toward the solution. Looking at this phrase, let me ask you, do you think there's a word that might make more sense instead of these two words? What other word could fit here when talking about an experience or memory?" And then Amy asked, "Do you think there are spelling problems? I wonder about the word memory. Did I use a wrong vowel?" So Amy is, of course, being a second language acquisitionist, knows exactly what kind of questions to ask. But Amy is guiding ChatGPT to help her with her problems. And this whole process is very interactive. It's not an information dump. Um, and it almost sounds like you're talking to a tutor, actually. Um, and then ChatGPT responded, "Yes, you've identified something important, blah, blah, blah." And then um, it gave Amy some options, right? Um, by the way, I also want to mention that even this is a kind of ZPD management, right? So she kind of knew that maybe there's a spelling problem, and she's guiding ChatGPT to give her the right kinds of feedback. I also want to mention that Amy is not really interested in grammar. So a lot of her questions had to do with word choice. And that selection process is also ZPD management, right? Because sometimes when a learner learns something, they know that, oh, this is too hard for me. I can't deal with this at this time, right? This is way beyond my level. So I will deal with things that I'm interested in, things that I can work on. So that's an example of ZPD management. I can't see this. Let's see. Okay, so another example. So here ChatGPT gave Amy one of her sentences. What do you think of this sentence? Are there any parts that you feel are unclear that you would like to focus on? And Amy says, "Looks good to me. What I'm trying to say is that this isn't an average, I'm guessing is a noun. Is everything clear here?" And ChatGPT gave her a response. I see what you're trying to say, that it isn't an average or typical comic. And then ChatGPT gave her some words that would fit in her essay. But Amy's not happy. Amy had a word in mind. She just couldn't think of it. So she asked, I was trying to use a word that means average or normal, and I used a word that exists in Japanese and Korean too, because Amy speaks Japanese. So do you think I misspelled it? The kanji for the word is 보통. This should be a Korean word too. It should be spelled sort of like what I wrote there. In Japanese is, I'm not going to pronounce it. I use it when I speak Korean and people seem to understand me. So again, this is an example of ZPD management. And ChatGPT said, you're absolutely right. The word you're thinking of is 보통 in kanji, but it's pronounced blah, blah, blah in Korean. So again, you see that there's a lot of interaction. It sounds like Amy's talking to a tutor. So this is what Amy wrote in her autoethnography. The sessions felt satisfying. It was nice to be able to reread my sentences with an eye to improving them and to ask for help. ChatGPT had difficulty doing dynamic assessments, but with reminders, was able to ask me for my thoughts first most of the time. The entire session took me about the same amount of time as the other two ChatGPT sessions, though it generated many more pages of feedback due to more back and forth interaction. It was cumbersome to use ChatGPT to use DA, since it's not designed to do that. Therefore, I don't think ChatGPT could reliably do DA with a Korean student who couldn't also provide it with coaching. However, with better programming, I believe that ChatGPT could become a very good interactive dynamic assessment writing tutor. I have something cool to show you after this. It was evident that ChatGPT is programmed to be kind and supportive. Even when I was wrong, it told me I was doing well, and these are these are words that are important for a language learner. I was watching Amy do this, and she kept saying, "Oh, this is so comforting. This sounds so nice. I feel encouraged by this." Um, since we live in a world of constant challenges and mistakes as we struggle to climb the mountain that is a foreign language. So, remember Amy said that ChatGPT is not designed for dynamic assessments, and with better programming, maybe it will become a very good tool. Well, Cal Poly, the university that I'm in, is part of the California State University system. We are the first North American university system to partner with ChatGPT. And now we have something called ChatGPT EDU, and it gives us ChatGPT 4.0 capabilities. And with ChatGPT EDU, I can create my own bot and I can customize it. And that's what we did. So we created something called the Foreign Language Writing Tutor. It's a bot that we created in ChatGPT. And we customized it. We taught ChatGPT what to do when a student puts in their essay. So give them line by line feedback, ask questions, have students clarify what they mean all the time. And this is an ongoing project, and we're getting a lot of different researchers at different North American institutions to get involved. Currently, we have 4 institutions who are working on this, and we're really excited about what may come out of this. So just to conclude the talk, I think these are probably the pedagogical implications that you can take away from this. Providing explicit prompts or programmed AI feedback supports low-level students' use of AI effectively. Students with limited metacognitive awareness or low proficiency struggle when asked to independently engineer prompts. Structure reduces cognitive load and guides appropriate ethical AI interactions. Developing metacognitive abilities, planning, monitoring, evaluating is crucial before expecting autonomous AI use. Incorporating AI is time-consuming. Careful planning is required. It does not give the teacher less work, and I can testify to this because planning with Sunao, usually the workshop takes 6 weeks, but we spent 3 or 4 months just to work on the materials for the workshop. And thank you.